boat engines are expensive. Some boat engines cost thousands of pounds, sometimes tens of thousands of pounds. I haven't got that kind of money. I needed a new engine to repower this boat and I couldn't afford a fancy new one. So I thought it would be a good idea to buy an old tractor engine off eBay for £600 and marinise it myself. Now I'm not a mechanic, I've got no experience in it. Well, I have some experience, but the last time I tried to rebuild a similar engine, after 2 years, I made a catastrophic mistake and ruined it. So, which is how I find myself in this situation now. I was actually 2 years into a full engine rebuild when I made a catastrophic error. I was one of the first mistakes I made stripping the engine like 2 years ago was I sheared off an engine bolt, and when that happened I thought, oh shit, it's not a big problem, I'll sort it out down the line. But when that point came down the line, after I'd removed the crankshaft, polished it myself, replaced all the bearings, replaced the sleeves and replaced the piston heads, and I got to the stage where I needed to put the head back on, like most of the work had been done, I had to remove this bolt. And the more I tried to remove it, the worse things got. I tried a bolt removal tool, that didn't work. I tried welding onto it and welding a bolt on and removing it that way, that didn't work. And every time I tried something, it was sort of taking more of this bolt off, so it was getting to the point where it was sort of, I couldn't even like grab it with anything. And my last ditch effort was to get a helicoil set, drill it out and replace it. Because the hole where the sheared off bolt was so close to the wall of the block, I had to be really careful, and I used a drill press, but I wasn't careful enough and it blew out the side of the hole, and so I was left with a ruined block. So 2 years worth of work down the pan. So yeah, I found myself at this point. I'd spent 2 years rebuilding this engine and I was just getting to the sort of the home straight, as it were, and I made a catastrophic error. Well, I made the error 2 years previously, but the ramifications of it didn't become clear until then. So I was left with no option but to either replace that engine completely or replace the block. Now, as I said, boat engines are expensive. The most I could put aside was about 700 quid, and I wasn't getting anything for that. For a time I thought about getting a sort of a 4-stroke engine, but you're talking 2.5 grand for one of those reconditioned, and even then it was only going to be about 80 horsepower, which might be alright for pushing this boat along a river, but if I ever wanted to get out onto the coastal waters, I needed something with a bit more power, at least sort of 120 brake horsepower. So I couldn't afford a 6-cylinder. I couldn't really afford a 4-cylinder, but even if I could, it wasn't going to be powerful enough. So my only option then was to try and rebuild the engine I've got again. So what I did is I searched online for a similar engine, which wasn't easy because this engine is a hybrid of several different engines based around like the Ford Dover engine, but it's not a Ford Lehman, it's not a Dexter, it's not a Super, a Fordson Super Major, it's a kind of a Thames Trader engine, which is a truck engine, mixed with a few other bits from tractors. It's a bastard of an engine. Anyway, I looked online for similar engines, knowing that the Ford Dover was based on similar dimensions. So if I could get sort of a block that was sort of a universal block I could sort of cobble something together, which is what I did. I actually bought 2 engines just because they came as a bundle, and I thought it's good to have spare parts, especially with my track record. So I bought a Fordson Super Major 6-cylinder engine, 2 of them, non-runners, but they turn, they're not seized or anything. And my plan now is to strip the marinized parts from this engine, which is still in the boat, and use those to marinize one of the engines I bought off eBay and to put that in the boat. It sounds easy, but as always when I try these projects, I've run into several issues, which I'm going to highlight for you now. When I started the rebuild of this engine before and I stripped it out of the boat, I used an engine crane. Now the crane's currently in my home workshop, and I really don't want to have to bring it back down, because when I set it up before I had a floor and and everything, and I made a kind of a base out of railway sleepers, and I put the crane engine hoist on that and lifted the engine up. Now I don't have a floor at the minute, I don't have any railway sleepers on the boat, and I don't have the crane on the boat. Now as you may know, I'm disabled and it takes me a long time to do anything. It would take me weeks to bring down, I'd have to bring down the crane. It took me weeks to get it off. I'd have to bring it down in sections, bring a piece every time I came, bring a bit of railway sleeper every time I came. You're talking about a month just to set up the crane. So what I've decided to do is, I recently bought some of these doohickeys here that you make sort of railings out of, fence, sort of hand railings, and I'm going to use it to put some railings on the boat. And I bought them because I like them, they're industrial and they're heavy duty, and I know they're not nice and chrome, but this isn't a nice and chrome kind of boat. Anyway, I bought them for a project in the future. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do is use it to cobble together a crane, a harness that'll allow me to take the engine out safely and strip it on the boat. I'll show you what I've got set up. As you can see, I've got this block and tackle set up, and it's sort of suspended from the ceiling. Obviously this is an ideal situation, and I would not recommend this for anything other than a short-term fix. Now this setup, see it's already attached to the engine, is meant to suspend the engine 20 centimeters, so roughly from where it sits now to the bottom of this cross member. And once it's suspended, I've started building a harness underneath. Once it's suspended, lower it onto this harness and then pull it out of the back of the engine bay into this area where it'll be stripped down. And the idea is to hoist it up and then quickly put the harness in place and put it down straight away. So it's not going to be in the air for more than 10 minutes, if that. And that's to cut down on the risk of it sort of falling down. So what I'm doing today is just building that harness. So I'm going to be cutting up bits of pipe and trying to cobble together something that'll stop the engine from falling out the bottom of the boat, which we do not want. I'm going to cut it here. I think this is 15 centimeters. I'm going to cut this section into 3 15-centimeter bits because I need 15-centimeter pieces for the project in the future, so I'm trying not to waste anything. Anyway, we'll get on with it. dead on 15. My 15 centimetre. It's a bit long for this application because I want this to sit more or less where it is, but because I need this to be this height for when I use it in the future, I'm just going to have to adapt the design. Once I know the design's going to work, oh, that's better. Once I know the design's going to work, I can tighten it up even more. We've got one on. I'm going to put another one at the end, about here, and then I need to fix it onto the strut at the bottom of the door. Sticking at the minute, but once I get the other side up, it should run freely. And what the idea is that I'll have two of these, and I'll move them up and down like a sled, and the engine will rest on this, and I'll pull it out. It's all very technical, but I'm 99% sure it'll work. So, right, there we go. Finished for the day. I've scratched the hell out of my phone with the angle grinder, all the sparks flying into it, trying to get awesome shots, but just ruining another phone. At least I haven't dropped this one in the sea yet. Before I do anything, I've got to remove this timing cover. Well, it's not a timing cover actually, but anyway, it needs to be removed because, as you can see, it's going to bind up against the jig when I try and raise the engine up. But the engine isn't held up by that anymore, it's held up by the strapping. So the first thing is to dismantle, unbolt this, remove this entire plate, then hoist it up. And once it's in the air, bring in the two sliders, one on either side of the oil sump, and then lower it back down. And I'm not doing it now. I'm knackered. It needs to be done when I'm when I've got energy and I can concentrate. I've already dropped the fumbled the angle grinder twice, and that's a gauge of how tired I am. Once I start dropping tools and hurting myself, and I know it's time to stop. And I also fucked the screen on my phone. It's having trouble focusing because all those sparks from the angle grinder that looked pretty just went straight into my phone, and it's ruined the screen. Well, it's not ruined it, it's just, you know, it's not very good. But at least I haven't dropped it in the sea, which is what happened to my last two phones. So right, so I'm going to clear up this mess, and then I'm going to head home because I'm absolutely shattered. But I'm really pleased with my progress, and next time I come down I should be able to get that engine out and start stripping it